All right. Welcome to the CS for All Teachers webinar on strengthening your CS community. My name is Joey Wilson. I'm one of the principal investigators for CS for All Teachers, which is a virtual community for computer science teachers across the country. Really excited to be in the background of this. I am not presenting. This is all the people who are on the screen now. And I will pass it over to Bobby, who's going to be hosting this, but I just wanted to go through a few housekeeping things. We'll be using the chat box a bit, so please feel free to introduce yourself and say where you're from, what you teach, what your position is. We are going to try to make this as interactive as possible. You'll also notice that in the towards the top, there is a sort of raise your hand button. If you ever have any questions or you want to make a comment, please feel free to raise your hand, and I will try to unmute you. You can also put those questions into the chat box as well. But with that, I'm going to pass it over to Bobby.
Hey everyone, it's Bobby Uman here. I just want to welcome you this evening to Strengthening Your CS Community. I'm here on the call as well as the folks that you see on the screen in front of you. Jake is here, the CSTA Executive Director. We have Jackie Moore, who's the Director of the Chicago Knights Robotics, as well as many other things that you're going to hear about. And you don't see his picture, but he's on the call with us. Dale Reed, who's the Director of Undergrad CS Recruitment, oh, there he is, at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Dale is actually joining us from China, and so we really appreciate not only him, but all of the guests that we have tonight. And I think tonight is going to be really helpful for many of us, and I'm hoping as well that you can pass this resource on to folks in your community. So quite simply, the goals are stated right here. Number one, we'd like for you to expand your CS community. You'll see in the next slide all of the different benefits we talk about from having multiple CS communities. But I think this webinar is in particular timely because it's towards the end of the school year. We're kind of wrapping things up, but for some of us, we're starting to think, man, what if, or I wish, or, you know, next year I really want to. And so we're hoping that one of the things that you can incorporate into your goal setting for next year is to expand your CS community. Number two, each of us are going to provide practical suggestions to join or get more involved with one of the communities that we talk about. So we will provide links throughout in the participant chat, and so those links will be thrown out there as people talk. As Joey mentioned, the webinar is recorded so that you can forward this on to other folks in the community. Last but not least, there's myself, Jake, Jackie, and Dale. But we know that so far with the participants here, you all have a wealth of experience and different resources and tools that you've used to increase and strengthen your CS community. And so we're really asking you to share. Don't be shy. I often say in my class, I need you to AWOF. I need you to ask or answer without fear. And so we're going to ask you to answer or ask or share without fear in that audience chat. That being said, let's jump right into it. The importance of a CS community. Why do I need one? And really, I distilled it down to just a handful of reasons, of which there are many more. Number one, support. Number two, opportunities to learn from other folks. Number three, opportunities to grow. And last but not least, ultimately, it benefits our students. So if someone were to ask me, why do I need a CS community? Why should I have that as a goal for next year? And many of you probably have other reasons as well, but really that support, those relationships, I mean, the ability to ask questions of people and just bounce ideas and, hey, I was thinking about doing this. What do you think? That's so important for us as teachers and especially as teachers of CS. Opportunities to learn, I can say both. Not only have I learned content from the communities that I'm a part of, but I have learned so much in terms of pedagogy and how to best teach CS. Opportunities to grow. I think as you hear the different presenters talk about these different communities, there are so many opportunities within these communities to lead, to serve as a mouthpiece, to vocalize concerns on behalf of others, to mentor, to provide input, to come to the table. And so ultimately, all these things benefit our students. So we talked about the importance of a CS community, and so I just wanted to, just for our conversation here, just set the table to define a community. If we can all agree on this definition, a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals, here are the CS community, here's the pieces that we think can be part of your CS community. Professional organizations like CSTA, and Jake is going to speak to that. Those with curriculum connections, so folks that you might teach a shared curriculum with, whether you teach ECS or Code.org or Beauty and Joy of Computing, people who teach the same curriculum can be a community for you. And I'll speak a little bit to that. I'll speak as well to alumni and parents who can be part of this journey in growing and developing and strengthening. Jackie is going to be speaking to other nonprofits and community organizations that can really strengthen your community. Dale will talk about local universities, as well as companies with CS emphases, your Googles, your Microsofts, how they can be a part of that. And then lastly, I'll kind of conclude our webinar talking about some of the online groups. Clearly CS for All Teachers being one, but then other communities found on social media and especially Twitter. So those are the different CS communities that we'd like to talk about and how to strengthen those. Super excited. Again, let me just say, join in the chat, introduce yourself if you join late, and feel free to ask questions as well. But with that being said, let me begin with our first poll. We've got a small group of us here right now, but I wanted to know, and I think it's going to be helpful for us going forward, which one of the communities referenced are you currently involved? And you'll notice that this is a live poll. And so as you put in your answers, we kind of see kind of the distribution, the makeup, and it also helps us decide where we need to talk a little bit more or a little bit less. So I'll give you a minute to just kind of fill that out. Great question, Vicki. I would say, how about we say the one that you're most involved with? All right. Well, it looks like we've got a strong CSTA representation happening right now in the call. This is really good for us to know because the alumni parents, the companies with CS emphases, as Dale's going to talk about, no one said like, that's my primary, or which is fine. And so I think we'll be able to learn and gather from one another. And so we're going to move on. And at this point, let's talk about the first community being CSTA, and I'm going to pass it on to Jake.
Hello, everyone. It is really exciting to see so many CSTA members and folks that I know in the participant list, and really exciting to see that we've got a representation from one of our newest chapters. I think it is officially our newest chapter in Miami, so great to see you all here, and thanks everyone for joining in to learn a little bit more about CSTA. Because we have some background knowledge, I will go a little bit more quickly through some of the intro on what CSTA is and dive into some examples I wanted to share of really fun things we've seen local communities and chapters do to work with and support computer science teachers in their local regions, expanding to nationally. Before I dive in, I do want to say a quick thank you to all of our CSTA Plus members. CSTA Plus is a new tier of membership we launched last year at our conference, and it is a big part of how we support our organization and, most importantly, how we support work that happens at local chapters, and is a way that we can provide grants and funding and other support to all the work that chapters are doing. So thanks to everyone who is a member, and if not, I'll make sure to tell you how later on in this chat. To start off, I wanted to introduce myself. So that's me back when I was a high school computer science teacher, and it's always fun to have folks try to figure out what my sign says before the end of my little spiel here. But I was a high school computer science teacher, and I found that I had really supportive administration that knew we should have a computer science class, that made it a key part of what we do, what we did at our school, but had no idea how to support me in teaching computer science. My principal would poke his head into the room and say, "This looks great, everyone seems engaged. I'm not really sure what you should be teaching." And to be honest, I really wasn't sure what I should be teaching either. And through luck and some good friends, I stumbled into this incredible group of teachers that were from Chicago, working in schools around me that were struggling with the same challenges, that were trying to answer these same questions. And it was the Chicago CSTA chapter. It felt like all of a sudden I had found my family, or really I had found my department. I was always secretly really jealous when we'd have time for department meetings and planning time at school, and I would go and sit by myself. And all of a sudden I was introduced to this new community that taught me about new programs and curriculum I could teach, introduced me to professional development opportunities, and it really became people that I've stayed friends with since that first meeting. So really an incredible group for me personally and professionally. And I've been thinking a lot about how since that time there's been a really dramatic change in how we teach computer science and how many computer science teachers there are. I'm guessing that there are folks on this call who have been involved with some of the programs on the screen, and overall there are tens of thousands of new teachers coming in to teach computer science, bring it into the programs that they're offering, integrate it into other subjects. And that's an incredible thing that's happened. But at the exact same time, we're setting up all those teachers to have department meetings that look a lot like this. I promise there was a really funny GIF here, and you're just going to have to imagine what it looks like. But the truth is we're setting teachers up to be in that same environment that I was in, often the only teacher in their school, if not their district. And we know that that's not how you build support. That's not how you find the energy that you need to keep teaching. And so at CSTA, we are first and foremost focused on building and sustaining local communities that can continue to be those departments for computer science teachers and all of these new computer science teachers, and for people who've been teaching CS and want to continue to grow and expand beyond their first or second professional development program. CSTA has over 70 chapters in most states across the country, and is really committed to building and growing those chapters. So the most important thing that I can share during this call is to find and join your local chapter. I know we have a bunch of folks in here who are already engaged with some of their chapters, but if you're not sure how to do that, you can find your local chapter at csteachers.org/chapters. We're really excited because just a couple weeks ago, this new website launched, and you're able to enter your address or zip code and find all of the chapters that are closest to you and really quickly join them and become a member of the overall organization as well. So if you learn anything from the call today, it's please find your local chapter, engage with your community, and see what's going on. And I won't fault you if you stop paying attention to me now and are going to do that as we speak. It really is incredible to see what's happening across the country and how teachers are driving what sort of learning they're bringing to their communities. And I want to talk a little bit about 3 examples that we've seen happen recently that I think are really incredible ways that chapters are taking ownership over how we as a community of teachers can learn together. So the first example of that is, I'm going to pick on Chicago again. The Chicago CSTA just last summer held their first CS Ed Camp, an unconference style 2-day event focused entirely on building an agenda and learning from each other. I unfortunately was not able to be there in person, but as you can see from the pictures, everyone had a wonderful time. And what I think is so incredible about this event is that it really brought together all of the different stakeholders in the CS education community. There were elementary school teachers, high school teachers, university instructors and partners, and industry partners as well, all participating in different ways. And the content was all driven by what the community decided was most interesting and important. And these are the sort of events that can only happen when we bring together teachers from a community and focus on what they're most interested in learning together. So it's a really cool event. There are folks that would be happy to share with you how this was pulled off and how it could be something that you bring to your local chapter as well. Moving on from something like a CS Ed Camp, we've also seen really incredible work from chapters in advocating for teachers and taking a leadership role in how they frame what's most important for their teaching practice and for students in their region, generally happening at a regional or state level. So I want to call out our Central New Jersey chapter next, and Daryl Dietrich, if any of you know him. The CSTA New Jersey and then Central New Jersey group really focused on how policies could change in the state to support more students learning computer science. And we're doing so at a time when there was going to be a change in governor and elections coming up, and a lot of policy experts felt like it was not opportune to make a change and really make a push for policy differences to happen in the state. And that was not something that would deter what the local chapter saw completely necessary for teachers to be able to support students in learning computer science and grow the number of CS teachers in the region. And they took on this challenge. They worked to lobby with local legislators and really project with a strong voice what teachers were saying was most important. And through the momentum they built, there was a huge change in the interest in policy in the state, and over that legislative session, actually dramatic change to the point where now schools are required to offer computer science courses in the state of New Jersey, and there was funding that was allocated as well to support professional development and the growth of computer science. And again, I think what's so important from this message is when folks outside of the classroom were not interested or ready to make this sort of change. It was the voice of teachers and the stories they could tell and the needs that they identified that really moved the needle. And forming and being a part of a CSTA chapter allows you to build that community and voice that can make dramatic impact at a policy level, be that at your school, your district, or statewide. Last, I apologize, there's not a slide for this, but I also want to highlight work that we've seen chapters do to bring in and structure more in-depth professional development for teachers across a region or state. And we have 2 chapters this summer that are running CSPD weeks, and thanks, Bobby, for throwing that link in there. So in Arizona and New Mexico, both of our chapters there are organizing week-long professional development experiences that bring in professional development for everything from elementary and kindergarten teachers all the way up through AP computer science, with a focus, again, on having the local chapter identify what was most important for their community to learn. And something really magical happened when the approach came bottom up from teachers as opposed to what traditionally has been happening across the country, where a curriculum provider or vendor would come in and say, here's a program you should do. Once teachers were the ones saying, this is what we find most important, the Department of Education was really interested in participating and partnering with us. Other industry folks came in and got on board, and in both cases there's been dramatic support across a number of partnerships led by really engaged CSTA members and teachers that are now bringing professional development to grow their chapters. And that's on top of incredible events we see from regular meetups where teachers can share what they're learning and doing and find most exciting in the classroom. Just last night, I was able to join the Chicago CSTA chapter meeting, which is where I live, and learned how to make a really cool app with these physical computing devices that are on the ground and light up and can be stomped on. And we were seeing a really exciting thing that the youngest students could engage with and have a lot of fun making games in a physical way. So all of these opportunities to connect and learn and build with a focus on listening to and elevating the voice of what teachers can do. And I will say that the biggest example of this every year is when we all come together at the CSTA annual conference. And this is such an exciting chance to, again, see what teachers from across the country are learning and doing and sharing with each other. I'm so proud of this event, not just because we put it on, but because it's really driven by a committee of teachers that are thinking about what will be most impactful and meaningful for their peers. And as much as I miss being a teacher, I have to acknowledge that that's not me anymore. And it's so wonderful to have folks like Vicki, who's on the call, who can help identify and bring in some of the really engaging content that is available for everyone, from a brand new computer science teacher to folks that have been really experienced and working in the field for a long time. I will say, if you're interested, the conference this summer is in Phoenix in July, and there's still time to register. I really, really would love to see folks there. And for those of you that are part of your local communities, talk with your chapter leaders. We have a really wonderful event at the start to work and bring together all of our chapter presidents. And it's an opportunity to plan for the year and really set the tone for what sort of things will be brought back to your local chapter. So now is your opportunity to say, here's something I'm interested, here's something I'd love to see us do over the next year. And then we can have time to plan and think about what that can look like and identify the resources necessary to make it happen over the summer. And last, to wrap us up, I just want to say that the most important thing, I think this will go across everyone who's speaking tonight, is that this happens because we're all in this together. We're all learning from each other. And these communities are about how we can find time and space to learn from each other. So please sign up, become a member at csteachers.org/join. Find your local chapter. Find the next time that you're meeting. And it's really incredible how much energy you can gain from being in the same room with other teachers and other folks that are struggling through the same challenges you are. I know that a lot of times my old colleagues would roll their eyes when it was time for those department meetings, but I really do mean it. I was jealous when I couldn't get together with peers and figure out what we were going to work on together, and this was my chance, but like that on steroids, and it's really a wonderful thing to be a part of. So thanks so much for letting me ramble on a little bit about this, and I'm going to pass it off to Dale now.
Hi, everybody. I know that I'm going to the conference this summer, so if you're going, then I hope to meet you face-to-face there. And Jake reminds me of something that was true for us in Chicago, which is starting small with like-minded people and, not worrying about how many, it just needs you and one other person to exchange ideas and to have some productive conversation. So once upon a time, about 2008, a group of us sat around the table and asked each other, hang on a second, I just want to make sure, can you hear me okay? Is my audio working?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep. Okay.
we sat around the table, and there was about 4 of us there, and talked about, well, how are we going to make computer science something that is a going concern in high schools across the Chicago area and across Illinois. And we really had no idea how we were going to do that. But we said, well, let's just do it anyway. Let's just decide that we are going to make computer science something that is relevant and compelling and an opportunity for every student in Chicago. And we don't know how we're going to get there, but if we commit ourselves to it over a long period of time, we can make it happen. And we didn't have contacts, we didn't have political connections, we didn't know a lot of different people, but we just started, just with a few of us around the table. And then someone asked the question, well, what if a high school principal agrees with us and says, oh, sure, I'd like to have computer science in my school? Then what? What do we have to offer? And we realized that we didn't have anything to offer. So we started looking around for some curriculum that we could use, and we had heard about exploring computer science, ECS, and initially dismissed it because we said, oh, that's just like the csunplugged.org material of hands-on kinds of activities. But then 3 of us attended the professional development for that out in Los Angeles, and we were really excited. I mean, you've all been to PD, and PD oftentimes is really boring, and this was not boring at all. It was really exciting and engaging, and we thought, this is what we want for Chicago. So we started working to bring ECS, Exploring Computer Science, to Chicago, and over the course of some years started bringing together teachers who were interested in this, and they started getting excited about it and telling others. So we built both bottom up as well as top down. We started with word of mouth by teachers, and then we also tried to connect with administrators. And we got connected with Brenda Wilkerson, who is one of I call, in the next slide I'll refer to the OG, the original gangster, CS for all. So she actually coined that phrase before Obama took it over, and we're happy for him to use it. So our goal was to get computer science for every high school student, but the problem was that we didn't have traction. So I'm digressing slightly. I do want to mention also that the university partnership is a two-way street. So we as university faculty don't have the expertise in teaching that high school teachers have. So you as high school teachers know how to teach. You've studied teaching. You have specific tools that you can use in your teaching that university faculty often do not have. So we need that expertise from you. So professional development that includes university and high school teachers together gives the opportunity for university faculty to figure out how to do a better job in the classroom. You probably remember some of your classes in college that where you were bored out of your mind, where the person up in front had a lot of expertise and content knowledge, but didn't know how to communicate it in an effective manner. Flip side, university faculty have content knowledge that can be helpful as well. And we're both part of the pipeline together. We're encouraging high school, encouraging students to consider computer science education careers, and in college it's the next step of that pipeline. So in Chicago, we've maintained strong connections between university and high school teachers through CSTA. So we have teachers and faculty members and administrators from UIC where I teach, from DePaul, Lucia DeTore, from Loyola, Ron Greenberg, IIT, Matt Bauer, and we at different points have sponsored meetings and have helped write grants. Sometimes grants come through universities more easily than school districts, and have also partnered with Chicago Public Schools to try and bring computer science to every student. So a couple of years ago now, computer science was made a graduation requirement for Chicago Public Schools. So we celebrate that victory, and it means instead of trying to get everybody's attention to think about computer science, now we deal with other problems, such as teachers that are forced to teach computer science. So there's always other challenges. So at the bottom of the slide, it says bit.ly/CS4HS. So at that site, you can see links to some of the events that we have had over the years and that we've partnered with together. So on the next slide, just a few comments about tech companies in the school district. So having a higher ed partnership also opens doors into industry. So we've got connections with Google and with Microsoft. So for instance, for some of our events, we have partnered with them to host the events, the CSTA events. And they're happy to do this, and they're happy to work directly with high school teachers, but sometimes these companies don't know the high school teachers. They don't have entree into the classroom. And through CSTA, we've managed to help make some of those introductions. And sometimes there's mini grants through some industry as well. Last thing I would say, start small with like-minded people, but then try and get these connections in industry, but then also get connections in the school district, because we want to have impact across the whole district, ultimately the whole state. So organizations like code.org have been invaluable in making these connections and advocacy to try and bring attention to the need for computer science and the benefits of computer science education. Next up is Jackie Moore, one of my heroes in terms of computer science education in the Chicago area. So Jackie, I'll turn this over to you.
Okay, I have to get off. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I like to start most conversations with a what if question. So what if we look at community groups and grassroots organizations a little bit differently? What if our community partners were seen as someone who can help augment what's happening in the classroom, who can be served as true partners for the computer science learner? Not as someone who's trying to teach computer science, but someone who's trying to actually support what's happening in the classroom. My name is Jackie Moore. I'm also known as a robotics lady. I'm going to flip this slide. You can look at it later. What you need to know is that I'm just committed to trying to expose young people to as much opportunity as I can. And so I made a point to create situations that exist, things that don't always fit well into the classroom. Let's go back a slide. I'm missing a slide. In any case, there's a concept known as a third space. A third space is a place where people choose to go. In the case of students, there's a school space, there's a home space, and the third space would be where they would go if they wanted to just hang out and just spend some time. So we created Chicago Nights robotics team, which is a third space where students can come to learn via design challenges to create physical things that use computer science. There's also another third space we've created, which is a youth maker space. And that's, again, another place to come in and learn how to do things using computer science. Basically, we refer to them as ICKI projects, interactive, kinetic, and intelligent. If it is all three, it is indeed a robot, but we don't tell them that up front. We just tell them to come in and create internet. We create ICKI projects, another third space, if you will. And then we create also a third space for Maker Faire, which is an opportunity for those students who created things in the classroom, in their third space, in their bedroom at home, whatever they created, they can come and show it off and get some public eyes on it. The value of that is that we take what they learn out of the classroom and show it out to the real world, to the people who matter in their lives outside the classroom. So therefore, an academic endeavor becomes something that's a part of their everyday life. My third space is, because we all need a third space, but personal development, CSTA, is indeed one of my favorite third spaces because that's where I get a chance to meet with like-minded people. I get a chance to run my crazy ideas by folks and have them laugh with me or either join with me. And then Chicago Learning Exchange, which happens to be a organization of nonprofit organizations that are all committed to youth learning. It's in place, and then finally, the Idea Realization Lab at DePaul University, which houses our robotics team. Those are places I can go and play with things I'm learning, much as I'm encouraging young people to do so. And then the other third space of mine, where I focus on community development, is an organization called Force for Good, which actually works with small grassroots organizations to help empower us to be able to make a difference in the community. And the newest is a fellowship, a new fellowship called Chicago Peace Fellow, which supports local grassroots organizations to help us come together and find ways to increase the amount of peace in Chicago. Of course, we need peace everywhere. It just so happens this place focuses on Chicago. I mention these places to say that no matter what you're doing, we all need a community that supports us. But because I'm in a community-based organization, and I prefer to refer to it as a grassroots organization, because yes, I am a nonprofit, but it's just an IRS standing. Basically, I'm a grassroots organization, so I reach out to others who have like minds and concerned with the same problems. We try to work together. The advantage of those places like that and working with community organizations is that you get a chance to reach into those spaces that are in the community, find resources for yourself and for your students. So organizations like mine provide academic enrichment outside the classroom, but we also provide wraparound services, which often cannot be provided in the classroom or aren't provided as a major focus. The students receive leadership opportunities in working in these grassroots organizations, and we can often point them to scholarship resources that may not be readily available or aware of within the classroom setting. But that's value to you as well as teachers, because I know that you guys are all committed to trying to make the learning relevant to real life. Well, we are real life. So rather than you spending time trying to find opportunities, you can find those grassroots organizations whose day-to-day life is trying to solve problems that you can probably help with or your students can help with. It also provides opportunities for professional development. The Chicago Learning Exchange, for instance, is committed to supporting educators in their pursuit of finding ways to engage with young people. And they provide professional development opportunities that may not be on your radar right away because they primarily reach out to organizations, grassroots organizations. There's also volunteers, because we're connected to so many other grassroots organizations that want to see a difference being made in the classroom, many of which have problems that computer science can help solve. They're more than happy to volunteer. They want to come into the classrooms and share their expertise or share their issues and work along with students as partners. Finally, there are also some grants and other funding sources that become available to you that don't come through normal academic channels. So how can you benefit from this? What can you do? One of the things I would say is that you really, really want to create true partnerships with community organizations. To do so, look around your community. There are probably small organizations that you walk past every day to the classroom or drive past. Reach to your parents and ask about them. The size of a community organization doesn't necessarily dictate the size of the impact they can have. What's really most important about the organization is their connection to that neighborhood. And then when you find those partners, co-create those activities and create them for blended spaces. And by that, I think about the fact that we all understand that iteration is important for it to really make a concept stick, but you're limited in the time you have in the classroom. And in many cases, your students are limited by access to an internet connection. And yes, I know libraries have internet connections, but libraries are not in your bedroom at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're not around at 6 o'clock in the evening when you have to go home. But a lot of those community organizations that provide wraparound services, they can be where your students are. And the students can have those in addition to the library as a place to go and get resources and practice those skills that they need. And if you co-create the activity in such a way that it can take place in the classroom and outside the classroom, then everybody wins. One of my personal passions is to find a way that the learning that takes place outside the classroom can be acknowledged in the classroom. The reason this is important to me is that I spend a lot of time working with robotics teams. They put in a ton of work. They work hard. They do research. They create journals. They're busy putting into practice the types of mindsets and behaviors that you want to see in your classroom. But they have to do that and duplicate that for the classroom. I'm looking forward to the day when a student researches a mechanism to solve a problem for the robot, and they're able to get some credit in their language arts class for the research papers they did. Or when someone creates a prototype and they show the entire process, they can get some credit or acknowledge it, at least acknowledge it within the classroom. And then it's helpful if you let your students know about the organization that exists and let them know it's okay to reach out to those organizations and perhaps create a bridge between you and those organizations. One good way to get involved and find out for yourself whether an organization is worth your time or your students' time, spend a day or two and volunteer during the summertime. I've had students come in, I've had teachers work with me for a day or two in the summer just to understand how I implement certain lesson plans or how I approach certain problems. And we both learn from it. We walk away, we're both better off and the students benefit. It's also a very good way to share best practices. Everything that works in a classroom doesn't work in a community setting, but there are many things that you guys have already figured out that those of us who are not teachers are still trying to learn. So share your best practice, and therefore you would improve the work that we do in the community, and therefore we improve the quality of the student who comes back to you. In particular, this summer, just find one community organization, be intentional about learning about their work. And the organization doesn't have to screen computer science. The reality is that computer science impacts all areas of life. So just reach out to someone and connect with them and facilitate a learning experience. If you want something in particular to do, there's a chain reaction movement that's taking place in Chicago. I will provide a link to get more information about it, and you can read through the slide later. But bottom line is it's integrating some physical activity with Internet of Things technology, which will allow you to activate some information that your students are learning from. So my last what if is what we continue the discussion when we have more time and more bandwidth to do so. If you're interested, my contact information is there. Feel free to reach out at any time. I'm going to now pass this back over to Bobby.
Jackie, thanks so much. And what I really loved, especially about the last slide that you had, was what can you do this summer? If you weren't with us when we started the webinar this evening, the goal was, the idea was, as we're wrapping up this school year, thinking about next year, and just thinking about some of the what ifs and how can I get better as a teacher and where would I love to grow. And so furthering our involvement in any one of these communities would be a great goal for any one of us. And so I just wanted to quickly kind of end off our evening and hopefully give us enough time to have some questions. And just talking about three last communities in which we could potentially get involved with more to deepen our CS community. The first being curriculum connections. I started teaching CS in 2015, and I remember when I got my job, I was writing curriculum, and my boss came and said, hey, there's this organization, code.org. I need you to go to a training for a week. And I went there in 2015. I learned amazing things about how they're teaching CS, and slowly but surely it went from learning to what you see in the pictures there, where I was able to grow into facilitating teachers and facilitating groups and learning so much from teachers and learning more about how to teach CS. As I mentioned, it was not just good pedagogy, but it was also great content as well. So what I'm going to do is quickly just, in my humble opinion, just if you're new to CS or know someone who's new to CS, getting involved in a community centered around a curriculum can be super beneficial. And I'm going to put some links in the chat, and it looks really ugly in that chat, so I'm going to hopefully find a way to format that nicer. But there's a bunch of curriculum. You can see Beauty and Joy of Computing. There's some for CodeHS. I put a bunch in there. Again, I'll send it out so it's a little bit more neat, and I'll have that as a link for us. But again, some of these communities are great places, and you know, the level to which these communities not just affect your local community, but a national community. And you see a picture here of a code.org event that we were at last year. Another community that I'd like to highlight is Alumni and Parents. And I think many of us think of parents as like, all right, chaperones, I need a field trip. But the wealth of resources and also the level to which parents love being involved in providing resources, creating experiences to deepen your CS community as well as the experiences for the kids in the class, I found has been awesome. You'll see some pictures here, which I'll speak to later, but I've got a parent coming in tomorrow to judge a Shark Tank presentation, so that's another easy thing. Have parents come in, judge different, viewers of different projects, and kids love that, and you all know that. What you see right here is just some connections that were made just through parents, through conversations. And on the left picture, we had some folks from PwC talk to kids about like machine learning and how do they identify songs. And the kids were super interested when they played these rap songs, and the machines were able to identify the artist. And so they were able to connect to our kids. On the right side, again, through some parent connections, we found out that PwC here in Chicago offers cybersecurity training to C-suite, their CEOs, and they offered to bring in some of my campers just because a phone call was made. And so we were able to come in and participate in some of the C-suite training that they give, and it was accessible for the kids. They were able to pretend to be hackers and try to hack the system, and you've got some folks there. I will say with Alumni and Parents, it's probably been it's so rewarding in terms of what they can do, but probably takes the most networking and phone calls. So I just encourage you to consider that. And last but not least, online communities. Another great place to consider getting a deeper involvement for next year. CS for All Teachers, we're a virtual community of practice. I mean, the benefit of all of these, right, is that you can connect from anywhere. You don't need to travel anywhere. Connect at your convenience. But I've found that the best part of these online communities, and Vicki, who's on the call, can speak to so well, is you've got actionable resources, and you've got people who are motivated and passionate, and you get a lot of inspiration. So CS for All Teachers, as I mentioned, virtual community of practice. It's free. You can sign up. You've all found the link somehow, some way. I put the link in the chat for you to get involved. We have communities around elementary, middle, and high school, as well as around ECS. So some places that you can find some great resources. I know I'm rushing, but I wanted to highlight on the right side of this screen here, online communities. I have been a participant of one Twitter chat, and my goal for next year is to be a participant of more. Some of these hashtags are some Twitter chats that are available that are really focused just, again, on the CS community, and I'm putting some of their information in the chat window, along with the dates, the resources, and kind of the topics of those Twitter chats. Let me just put a couple more in here. And many of you, if you know of other ones that have been super helpful, let us know, post those in. But these are some of the chats that I know of that happen regularly. But again, these are just great communities for you all to be involved with. And so we're coming to the end of our time. And I'm not sure if you were with us when the call started, but we started with a poll on finding out which community you were most involved with currently. And so I'd like to close with this live poll and just say, all right, if you're thinking about next year and next steps and where would you like to go next, which one of these communities reference would you most like to increase your involvement? And if you click on any one, you'll notice that the bar starts tabulating, and so I'll leave it for a minute to kind of see where things are at, and then we'll go into a Q&A. All right, we'll end the poll here. Ooh, that was getting kind of close at the end. I saw some people going back and forth between CSTA and online groups, Jake. I don't know how to take that, but again, this is just fodder for discussion and for you to hopefully have some food for thought as you enter into the summer. Where would I like to get more involved as I think about my steps as an educator and what kind of experiences and things I want to bring to my kids in the class. I'd like to conclude our time with just a Q&A, and I'm going to invite Joey to come back on and kind of explain how the Q&A works and how you can ask questions not only in the chat but live as well.
Sure. Thank you so much for such a great presentation so far and webinar. If you have questions or comments or you just want to share something, please feel free to put it into the chat, but we really encourage you to press the raise my hand button and I can unmute you so then that we can hear from you. So are there any questions or comments or ideas or links? Don't be shy. I know you're not shy. You're teachers. You teach lots of children. You are definitely not shy. Okay, so Nicole put a question into the chat box. Do any of you have ideas to help teachers identify with being a CS teacher instead of being a teacher who teaches CS?
Well,
Nicole, if I...
Go ahead, Bobby.
Go ahead, Jake. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say that is a great question, and there is no silver bullet answer to it. And you're right. I think there's important language we can use in bringing folks to the community because there's really interesting research that shows that being a part of and engaging in communities like a CSTA chapter or online groups is a huge part of how teacher identity is formed and what can help that shift happen. But obviously, you're not going to come and join that community if you haven't made that shift yet. So I've heard from some chapters that are doing events like bring a friend or hosting open events that highlight how to integrate into something you're already doing and sort of having people become part of the community without knowing what they're doing quite yet. As Jackie just said in the chat, I completely agree. The act of inviting folks, be it include a middle school night or other more open events that allow someone to opt in without feeling like they have to say they're a CS teacher quite yet.
This is Dale, and I just want to offer the comment that becoming a CS teacher is a process, and even being a teacher is a process. For myself, I find that it's only after I teach a course for the third time that I feel like I'm doing a good job at it. I mean, it takes time to both learn the content as well as learn the ways of teaching that are appropriate for that particular content.
And so I had a question actually for Jackie. We have different opportunities, and the idea of community partnerships is really interesting. I'm just wondering, Jackie, what's the best way to find out about community development organizations besides saying, Googling community development organizations in Chicago, the ones that are going to be ready for CS?
I can talk to your students and to your parents because we should not wait for folks to recognize they need computer science. It actually permeates everything. So simply find out the community organizations that are already there and just go by and introduce yourself. sometimes they're easy to find because there's signs on the windows. It's just you have to once you open your eyes and look for them, you can find them. Google is not a bad thing either. Just another thing you can do is, I'm sorry, I got distracted by the outreach to the library. You can invite the community in. Most schools have some sort of opportunity to invite the public into the schools besides just PTA meetings. Chicago's local school councils. You can just schedule a computer science night and market it widely. If you have to have the kids get a couple extra points, they bring someone in who's not a parent. Get them in the door and let them to know you.
Thank you, Jackie. We are unfortunately coming to the end of our time here, and so I just wanted to, first of all, thank our guests for being a part, Jake, Jackie, and Dale. Thank you so much for spending your evening here with us and sharing some of the tips and insights. All of you participants who joined and spent some time with us this evening, thank you so much. Really hope that you were able to walk away with some practical next steps. I just wanted to make you aware of our community of practice here at CS for All Teachers. I have another webinar coming up next week. There is no rest for the wicked, I've heard, and so I am leading a webinar on incorporating AI in K-12. It's next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. I'll be the moderator, but we have Dave Turetsky, who's leading AI for K-12 and really talking about the standards for teaching AI. And I think it's going to be really exciting. Again, another thing for you to think about as you head into the summer and how you can incorporate this for your classroom next year. Dave Turetsky, Charlotte Dungan, and Fiona Deeney, and we're going to be talking about incorporating AI K-12. And so I hope you join us for that. I'm going to pass it off to Joey.
Great. Thank you so much, Bobby, for hosting. Thank you, Jake, for being on here. Jackie, thank you so much for providing your perspective. And also, Dale, thank you for calling in from China. The fact that you were able to do that, I know this is incredible. Everyone else who's on the call, thank you. We know that you have a lot of different things that are going on in your life, and you are choosing to spend your evening with us. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to hop on. The one thing I would ask is I put a link in the chat to a survey. This is just something we do after every single one of our webinars to make sure that we are providing the sort of content and feedback, giving us feedback of what we're doing and how we can improve. So please take 1 minute and fill that out. That would be one thing. The other activity I wanted to mention is we've got a couple of Twitter chats that are going on through the CS for All Teachers handle right now. We've got a few more that are coming up. Really encourage you to sign up. But other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and the recording will be available, I believe, starting tomorrow. We will tweet it out, and we'll try to make sure we tag CSTA so then that you all can retweet that out as well. Thank you all so much. Hope you have a great day or great evening.